Welcome to another episode of Price Targets with your host Bitcoin Jack. Welcome back, guys. It's been a stressful day, 2 days actually, getting the new desk set up and making sure everything works correctly, because I've switched quite some gear and I had to wait for some stuff to come that came later, and then obviously I had to figure out how to set up this new mic, etc., etc. Sometimes these things, you think like, oh, I'll just do that. It's just plug and play, and then it turns out it's not. So, yeah, I won't bother you guys with that, but it's been an interesting 2 days. So, this market, man, like, we're so back. We were so lost. We were so back. If we look at this, like if you look at this chart, Bitcoin, it just looks like we're, it looks actually really good. Especially, if you were around in the market when we crashed below 100 and then reclaimed it, retested it. The low time frame reminds me of literally, this kind of pump here, and then the retest reminds me of how Bitcoin bottomed back in 2022, 2023. So very interesting stuff. I don't know. I don't think there's any reason to think, this isn't gonna go and try these highs again. Definitely not a bear market. Anyone saying it's a bear market is out of their minds. We do still have the August kind of time window in which I think market is going to be weak. So the worst thing that can happen here is that we've tested this region here and we just keep going sideways into July and then have a sell-off in August, which I think, if that's going to happen, you probably want to look at the region here. But I don't think, let's delete that. I don't think this is this looks bad. This looks like it's washed everyone out. It retested the crucial area up here, and if the war is over between Israel and Iran, that makes me think things can go higher. Like, honestly, like look at ES, right? The S&P 500 or Nasdaq. It's practically at all-time highs. NQ. It's practically, actually it is at an all-time high. So, that's not really a bad market thing to see, right? So S&P 500 to 6,900, it makes a lot of sense. I've been saying it for a while. The fact that everything that's happened last week just required some kind of, all it could do was push the price down here. Honestly, this is nothing. And then the market rallied on any good news. So the bad news wasn't really, putting a lot of dent into the S&P 500. And then the good news ran it up. So we spoke about ETH last week. I don't think this squiggly was there last week. But essentially, after being rinsed on this trend line, we did identify the region down here. Like let's grab like ETH BTC. These two levels have been the levels that I outlined to the downside where I'd be a buyer. Obviously, I'm madly bullish biased for the last couple of weeks, and I will probably keep doing that. And then when the market rinses you out, you have to react to you have to buy, because otherwise you're just, you can't win if you let the market beat you and then not react to cheaper prices. That's essentially the message here. even this can still go wrong, right? Maybe it's just a, you know, a bounce, a dead cat bounce, and then we end up in the August low. But we need to gamble on these levels because that's our only framework we have outside of, you know, general fundamentals and flows. And these are levels that you want to play at. Same with, you know, hype has been kind of ugly in a way because the levels that I wanted to play were in between here and it rinsed all the way down here. Yet, you know, once that happened, you gotta kind of get into the market and play these levels. Even though they were wrong initially, they're still good levels to play with. So yeah, ETH BTC is honestly not looking too bad here. It rinsed the low here, and then into the little consolidation below that again, basically here. So in my opinion, that can have a bounce, at least back to the levels where we came from. And same for BTC. Like if you look on the daily, that's looking good. So I don't think it's gonna reach down here or sweep the low here yet, but it could definitely happen once we get to August. So essentially, bull flag after a rally. I think this is enough consolidation. It could become very ugly, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. Where you kind of repeat this pattern again. So you go down, you have a swift pump up, you come back down again. That could basically essentially repeat itself 3 times at the most. So there is a scenario where this just, you know, fizzles out here and then comes into the level here. We'll have to kind of find reasons for that to happen and then have invalidations for our longs, and then, you know, have balls to play around this area. That's like 92, 93, 94. Same for ETH. We've come like halfway of the gap that was kind of left behind, that we never really saw any consolidation in. So maybe this does kind of like make a higher high here, lower high here, and then come August, this is not really too like accurate to time, but come August we'll see coming back down here if BTC does the same. So this, you know, there's definitely reason to kind of see what happens at the weekly and the monthly level here. But again, you know, this is a great impulse move here, and this is a, you know, this corrective behavior. If you measure this stuff like here, yeah. So I don't know. There's a good reason to kind of be cautious, because it really hasn't only, maybe we came back like to the 0.5, so maybe it wants the 0.618 later. But for now I'm long, so yeah, I'm ready to get fucked again if things go bad. So essentially, to summarize the strategy, is to look for weakness in the 25-2600 region, and if we can go above 2750, I'd say there's very little chance that this is going to sell off. So we have, let me change that. So we have the line up here around 2700. Ideally, you don't see price peak above it and then get rejected hard down here. If we see something like this, I'd probably want to hedge either above here as a, you know, small risk entry, or a higher risk entry when it kind of falls down. And this must happen like towards like middle of July or later. Then it can come down here, right? I don't think that's what's going to happen. But it could. Like, essentially what I'm saying is I want to be long biased, and if I get fucked, get stopped out, this is very much the level I want to be playing at. Essentially either this level or slightly above it using this level. Same for BTC. I think this goes higher, but if it kind of starts to consolidate here around these levels and it takes a shit ton of time, then I think it's warranted to start preparing and bidding, probably, you know, below these wicks here, but I'd probably front run it a little bit, get a smaller size and hope for the best, because these things tend to sometimes not take out the liquidity, but generally like bigger position when it comes into these wicks here. Do I think that if this breaks out it can still come down here? Unlikely. I think if this breaks out we're probably on the run for the magic 144 and then all the way to 200 something. My price prediction model says that we haven't topped on this cycle and we need to pump to 200k plus tomorrow essentially for any signal that we topped or that we're close to a top. And as we start moving to 200k, that's gonna, you know, that number is gonna go up. So essentially, yeah, I think this needs to break out, but I don't know if it's gonna happen, right? Because I was wrong last week as well. I thought, you know, we could pump from the levels here, but larger picture, impulse consolidation. It's come down twice. Generally, that's enough. Sometimes it happens 3 times, but it's rare. It's you know, essentially it's very rare to for that to see that happen. So we could pump here and then kind of get stuck and then start losing levels, and that's probably where I get fucked again, and then we'll play from the lower levels. ETH USD, we talked about it. Filecoin, I mean, it's basically the same chart as most charts. Sweep a low, rally. I'm not as convinced of this because this is 1, 2, 3, 4 times into the level. So maybe this will guide us and tell us that market's actually weaker than it is. We'll see. It's been a good chart to look at. It kind of tells you when the shit's happening before it happens. So same with hype. Essentially, I thought this was looking much better if it would have held like the level here or the level here. Now it's starting to look like it's gonna need another flush at some point. So I'm gonna be taking profits as we get into the 0.618 retracement level, which is around 40. So that's not too far away. I want to be de-risking on some of this stuff. Like if you look at, for example, SPX 6900, this was last week's squiggly, and essentially the idea here was that we would have to come down into the in the 1.618 Fibonacci extension from this move down and then the retrace up here. And I figured, because that was such a, quite a steep, almost like 100% retrace of this level, that this could have, at least gotten into 1.55, and it didn't really manage that. So, but I'm convinced that this is the level to bid around. So we're probably going to reach the target now after coming off this level here, because really this should have hit it and there's still liquidity there. And then, once we reach the 1.55 level, that's probably going to be telling us a lot about the general market. Like, if that's going to get stuck there and we can't make new highs, then probably Bitcoin is also not going to do it. And this, I think then this is probably going to retrace much of the level here. So essentially come back down in the 0.618 level. And that's where you bid for, the larger bull trend later this year. So target 155 once again. Entry target was $1. And then if market gets stuck, this is the 155 level is where you get out, and then the 1.618 level down here is where we load up again. Broader market. So I'm still getting used to this new setup and the scaling and stuff. Like the scaling is much bigger, so all these squigglies look like horrendous. No, I don't want to delete that. I just want to have like a broader view. Okay, so XRP, I'm on the verge of believing that this may have been it. Last week we spoke about this wick down here, and I wanted to see it like kind of get raided, and that was a very minuscule raid below the level. I'd much prefer to see this come down in the, in the region, in the like 1400, 1500, 1600 region down here, and then do like a steep reclaim back into the range, and then then target the level that we rejected off twice. Once, twice, actually 3 times, whatever. So we really didn't get all of that, but it's worth playing a little bag here. Ideally, I'd be getting a much larger bag down here, but a sweep is a sweep, and a range is a range. I think we can agree that this is the range and that this is the level to be rated. So I don't know, if this doesn't show any weakness in the next couple of days, that's probably good enough for me. Just play it and see what happens. And worst case scenario, we're gonna have to wait for this, and then the broader market is probably going to be piss poor too. Let's see. Somehow this is still holding up, so that's generally for market stability, that's good news. Dollar isn't really liking it, but lower dollar, higher dollar denominated prices. Hello. Okay, it's not loading. Well, thank you, TradingView. That's amazing. I really love how you're not loading a fucking chart. Thank you. Yeah, you see how this whole scaling thing, it makes this thing look horrendous. It's what you get when you switch back to Mac OS. And need to recalibrate your scaling. So I hope I can get that fixed for next week. Essentially here, no way, like, I mean, you can look it up, go in the past. There's very little times where a bear market started essentially when you had a bigger sell-off and then retest your all-time highs. It's like maybe you get a 0.618 retrace, right? So that would have been, oh, that's kind of ugly. Let me remove that. Maybe, you know, the 0.618 is here, the 0.786 is up here. That's usually where you get your rejections. Anything above that generally is an indication that the trend is going to continue up. It looks mighty fine to me. I mean, look at that. I'm not saying that. Look, we've seen it in the past as well. So let me grab a monthly, right? So essentially, you're here August 18, or you're in this rally where you go above it and then come crashing down. But shorting after a sell-off near all-time highs, it's just not the place. You can think about it if you see the weakness. So you close above it, you close below it. Okay, well, that's not looking too great. We've seen that happen on Bitcoin recently. But it's generally just not the place to be. And then you probably need an event as well. So I think this is room for at least 6,400, and I would be very grateful this goes to 6,900. Gold seems to be sluggish here. Obviously, it's not liking the fact that there's peace in the world. So fuck gold. But yeah, I don't think it's gonna come into 2,800. Could be. Basically, what you want to do on gold, I think, is if it comes up here and it consolidates, long the shit out of it. You can long support here once. If this starts to break, you have market structure break, and then we're gonna actually, there's a real possibility we actually do this. So let me measure this for a bit. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, it's plausible. It's plausible to get to 2,800. I don't know. I'd be bidding here a little bit, but probably, this is where I would go big if it can manage to come up here and then consolidate, then trade to breakout. Well, stinky linkies, we had our reaction and then we sold off, so I'm not really sure about what to do here. Setup failed. Don't really have a new setup here. Maybe if it can reclaim the blue level, we still have the range trade to 1,700. And Ava came back quite nicely, I think. Yeah, so the 3 levels that I outlined last week to be rated and to be bidding are holding up quite nicely. And then the problem now is that this is actually becoming resistant. So I'm not too keen on trading this at the moment. It's you basically play these lows, but you're not seeing strength anymore. You're kind of breaking market structure. So what you're doing here now is selling the resistance, and then maybe once you see structure form again, so you have the move up, then you could actually start thinking about longs again if you come back down here. That's what I do now. So take profit on the supply. Maybe we manage to rate the highs here, and then I'd come down here. But this is a big resistance level, because that, if you go to the left here, that's essentially where you got held up and then had the final push up. I thought this was going to break 3,000 and it didn't. So what else is there to update? I don't think there's much to update, other than what have we spoken about. I'm not really sure. I can't really comment on the whole Iran-Israel thing. It's a giant shit show. It feels like cinema, and we're just televising the whole thing for the whole world to look at, and then somehow, somewhere in some kind of weird corner of the world, some people speak with each other, and then suddenly there's a ceasefire. It's interesting stuff, and I don't pretend to understand any of it. So yeah, let's get back to let's talk about backpack next week. They should be launching something with the points that we farmed, and then I think there's going to be more opportunities to farm more coins in season 2, which is coming up. So I think if we're real, I think there's going to be, I don't know, an airdrop worth, I don't know, if you scored well, I think there's like 10 or 20k on the table, I hope. So yeah, let's wait. Like, I really want to see what they're going to do with those points that we got. Anyways, subscribe to the channel, check out Backpack, register with my link, ref link in the description below, and if you do so, you're going to get 20% off your fees. Essentially, one of the best discounts you're going to get, and it's coming out of my own pocket. So you guys do that, and I'll catch you next week. Cheers.